Let's start with the original pop idol. Forget the Von Trapps, because when it comes to wholesome families, well, you'd be hard-pushed to beat this lot. A story of 5 talented kids, a singing mother, and, of course, a psychedelic van.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Partridge Family.
You're gonna see a brand new me. It's you that's on my mind. This time with you, baby.
Nice, Mom, having a little romance in her life. Don't you?
Don't you think you're blowing this thing up a little out of proportion? I mean, after all, they only met a few hours ago.
Yeah, well, Romeo and Juliet only knew each other one day.
And look what happened to them.
The Partridge Family, but behind all that American Pie, its star David Cassidy's life was a far cry from his on-screen persona. In his new autobiography entitled Could It Be Forever? My Story, he tells of drug abuse, promiscuity. He joins us now from this book to that book, because you have brought in your own copy of Jackie this morning.
Well, you are on the front page. I mean, you're on page one. And
that would be Donnie.
Yes, this is
That
Donnie.
would be page 2.
And this is you.
That would be me.
And look, and then our homegrown pop idol, of course, David Essex, who we'll talk
Indeed.
about in a minute,
Yes.
on page 3.
Yeah,
This-
he'll be touring with me in April.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that in a minute, but
All
let's
right.
sort out the book.
Yes, indeed, it's out this
Interestingly,
week.
with the book, I'd quite like to start at the back. And it's quite interesting because without you knowing your son, Beau, who I think he's 16.
He's just 16.
Just 16.
Yeah.
Someone that you know got him to secretly write
Yeah.
just the last chapter, The Legacy, a note from Beau, who says, as I get older, our relationship gets better. We're able to talk on almost the same level about things, communicate our feelings openly, share our passions with one another. He pays more attention to me now than all of the other things in his life put together. And that's really hard to find in a dad. He's my dad, and I'm darn proud of it. And when you get to that stage of the book, having gone through your life...
Yes, having gone through my life, that's all one needs to have is your son or your daughter. I have a son and a daughter who I'm very, very, very close with and love very much. And a lot of people have speculated about what it must have been like for me to go through the kind of life that I lived, that very few people, because of the time in which I became so successful all over the world and the extraordinary circumstances in which I became David Cassidy and famous from that great clip of the Partridge Family. We're born with what we're born with, meaning I've been asked so much about my looks and so much about, you know, what was it like to live that life and to be so isolated and to live. You couldn't walk down the street and I couldn't go places. And it cost me a lot of years emotionally.
But emotionally, the story doesn't start there, really, does it?
It starts at the very beginning of my life.
Yeah, because the
Misconception.
kids out in the street teasing you and saying, your parents are divorced, and you're thinking, well, no, they're not. Everything's perfectly fine. No one's told me anything.
That's right. They lied to me about that.
And then finding out that you really have been lied to.
Yeah. It was a difficult pill for me to swallow at 5. And my mother and father had been divorced for about 1.5 years. And, you know, you have to forgive people because we're all flawed. All of us have our own. My father was bipolar. And the book really is about me and my life as opposed to just the fame and all of the rest of it. The misconception oftentimes is it's a tell-all book or anything. It's really a story that I shared very openly and honestly about where I came from. My roots, in fact, are from Irish and English blood for the most part, and from working class, which in this country is probably not considered terribly chic or fab. But my grandfather and great-grandfather came over from Ireland and during the potato famine and lived in Queens, and 175 consecutive years of working as an engineer on the railroad. And my father was an aberration. He created himself and was bipolar. He was manic depressive and alcoholic. And he died tragically in a fire and was, you know, legally very drunk. And he was the most charismatic man. I worshipped him. And the more famous I became, the more he resented me. And
Was
the
the
more
last meeting that you had with him, he asked you for money and $10,000?
Yes,
And you
in fact-
never saw him again after that?
I never saw him again after that, and because I turned him down. He had the ability to seduce every human being, male or female. And I don't mean just sexually. I mean, he was so in need, and the most narcissistic man that you'd ever possibly could meet, which did not make for a great father. And people have asked me, you know, my son, that's one of the greatest compliments a human being can have. And I'm damn proud of my dad as being someone as a dad. People have asked me, how have you become such a great dad? And why is it so important to you? Because I got none of it. My father never came to a ball game of mine. He never came to school. He never participated in any other part of my life. I would go and visit him on weekends, and he would take me to his hairstylist, and I'd sit there. I can remember being a little boy, and he'd come and pick me up after I found out they were divorced, and we'd sit there. I'd sit there for 4 or 5 hours while he got his hair done, he got shaved, he had his nails done. Imagine spending the time with your son. This is the only day you're going to spend with him, and you do that. Or then we'd go shopping for clothes for him. You know, he was very, very self-indulgent.
And later you discovered that he was bisexual too.
I don't know that because I wasn't there in the room, but I have heard that, and it doesn't surprise me at all. But I think he was much more of a heterosexual, but I think his need for attention was so great.
Well, there's the connection between him and Cole Porter.
Yes.
Cole Porter, who was also bisexual, married anyway.
Yes.
And he was a very charming man, so that's two charming people together.
Well, my father, I think, was very much in awe of Cole Porter. Cole Porter had my father, who was a fabulous Irish tenor. We in America call, if you're from Irish descent and you're a tenor, here in this country you just call them tenors. But in America we call them Irish tenors, which is probably what I inherited from my dad. And Cole Porter had him sing a lot of the musicals that he had originally done that they hadn't gotten a Broadway cast to do. It was before they did them. So they went back and did a number of his musicals. And he had my father sing all of the male roles. He had such an incredible voice. He was such a talent. He could sculpt, he could paint. He was really crafty, and he was so gifted. He could write.
It's interesting that you say that he started to resent your fame, and
Yeah.
yet you were desperate to impress him all the time.
Well, it was my need
Yeah.
because he had abandoned me. And what a child does, because I've been through a long analysis and self-examination, a young child who is emotionally not developed has to find a way to empower himself. So what he does is he blames himself. So I always thought there was something wrong with me. And that's why my dad rejected me. It was my fault. But that's what all children do when they're left and there's no explanation, as opposed to, listen, it's not your fault. I love you dearly. Mom and I aren't getting along. That would have been the simplest and most honest. I think I probably, even though I wouldn't be able to put my arms around the whole concept, I would have been able to understand it. Instead, they liked
Well,
me.
we
But
talk
in the
about it so
50s,
much.
We didn't understand. People didn't understand what to say and how to do it.
No,
did
and
they?
also in those days, divorce was not something
Common.
and it wasn't my father was Catholic, Irish Catholic, my mother was Protestant, and in the very religious families, both of them, wasn't acceptable. And my father was a rogue, and he left the working class environment and went to New York and became this fabulous, probably the most respected theatrical actor of his time. He did over 40 Broadway shows, won Tony Awards, and a magnificent talent.
We talk a lot in here about the things that happen in your childhood and the effect that they have through your developing years.
Yeah.
And there's no question that your relationship with other people, especially women, looking back, you said, well,
My need
you
for
know,
love.
why would I stay with one particular woman? Why would there be a loyalty there? Because I was never shown any loyalty anyway.
Yeah.
And that's why you had this
Well, also
progression of-
because I couldn't go out, and people have a hard time understanding this. The world is very different today. Celebrities in those days, there were 2 or 3 channels on television. There was no video. There were no CDs. There were no DVDs. You had to sit in front of the television when it was on. In America, it was on at night. Here, they brought it over and it was on Saturday morning. So 90% of the kids in America were watching that show between the ages of 3 and 17, 18. 90%. So the next day, it became huge because the audience was so enormous, especially in that demographic. But I couldn't go out. I couldn't go anywhere. So when people are sleeping outside your home and they're very attractive and you're alone and you live in this little vacuum, the only relationship I had with the outside world were through the individuals that would somehow or another filter their way through.
You must look at the
Through
stars the stars of today. We're going to talk about rehab a little bit later, but the stars who
Sorry, I've never
come
been there.
Yeah, who come apart.
It's
now.
a unique situation that I've never been there
Yes.
because I never became a drug addict.
Yeah.
I never got into it where it became, for me, ruining my life. But it's now very fashionable in Hollywood to do it. And fortunately for me, I was...
Would you use your experiences then to help others like the name that springs immediately to mind is Britney, who appears to be in some
Well, if she had
big
the
personal
intellect.
crisis?
But yeah, one would think. But again, I never pursued fame. I never pursued the media or the paparazzi. They followed me, and I was the antithesis of that.
So you
I
didn't
wanted
use
to be
the
left
PR.
alone,
Yeah.
and I would hide from them, and they'd go chasing me everywhere. She, on the other hand, goes out to nightclubs where she knows they're going to be, with no bra, and revealing most of her body, with no underwear, and is surprised that, oh, there are cameramen here. Oh, I'm being caught. But it's kind of fashionable for the generation of what I call now, like, rag stars. I'm not sure what any of them do. What does Paris Hilton do? She's a professional celebrity.
Well,
and
she did
we
that
have such
show,
an
didn't
obsession.
she?
Oh, yeah, she did a show because she was a celebrity. You know, I mean, my passion in my life has been my work. The work, I've said this, and I speak to all of them when you say, would I give them advice? My advice is, if you do good work, if you write good songs, you write good plays, you sing well, you act in shows that have quality. The work, if the work is good, the fame and the money come.
Yeah.
If you do crap, it's over.
Well, let me tell you, I mean, your career is going to take a huge, massive leap forward in a moment because you're going to end up over on the other side of the room with Phil Vickery doing a bit of cooking. So you've no idea what fame is like until you get over there.
Yeah. Well, I can only say this, that it smells and looks fabulous.
It is.
Whether or not it's going to serve the old waistline, I'm not quite sure. But
Well, everything in moderation.
yes, indeed. The book is out this
This
week.
is the book, David Cassidy, Could It Be Forever? My Story, and we've just touched on parts of it. Obviously, there's a huge chunks of the
Fascinating
fame, the
story.
success, the story behind
All
it.
of
So
it.
it's a fascinating read,
And
David.
we're
Thank
doing
you.
a bit about rehab a little bit later as well, what it's like in rehab, and from somebody who's been there to tell us a bit more.
I
about
haven't
that.
been.
No, I know. I'm asking someone else.
Oh.
You've just said that.
Oh, I did, yes.
I'd ask you. No, he hasn't been. We'll find someone else.
Still to come today, Phil Vickery's paying homage to the great American cookie, giant peanut butter cookies and whiskey icing, we're led to believe.
And living in the wrong body. Melanie struggled with her sexual identity until she finally decided to become Jake. And now Jake is about to take a very drastic step to make his manhood complete. We're back right after this.
I'm late for work.
But Carlo,
Here you cookies, Carlo.
Hey, Carlo, it's a Saturday, no work today.
It's a Madonna Mia day.
How much chocolate do you have in your mouth?
None. None at all. Carry on.
Done now?
I will be.
Caught. Been caught.
Welcome back. Loads more to come today, including a national treasure and a special appointment with the very saucy Nana Norm. Enjoying herself this morning by the looks of it.
That's great. Look at that. Adoring looks. First, what no self-respecting all-American family dare be without, and in honour of today's salubrious guest, Mr. David Cassidy, Phil Vickery is here with his all-American peanut butter cookies.
With a little less chocolate.
Tiny less chocolate, but not too much chocolate.
What are you
So
going to
then,
do to fatten
Shall we
me?
go
Show
do
us.
it?
Let's go.
Right, where do we go?
Before we start, there's a little strap line. I want to show you the finished dish here. So let's have a quick look at this.
Mm-hmm.
You're sick. There we are. Look at that.
Ooh.
In honour of you, David.
Eee.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, the job is fatten David up.
Yes.
Not too
Why
much,
not?
though. Right, this is my friend who used to work with me called Graham, now lives in America, and he sent me a recipe, and we played around with it because I just love the big fat. No, I was going to say that. The big fat, soft, chewy cookies you get in America.
Oh, good.
In England we don't get
you
them.
clarified that.
We don't get them.
Soft,
Juicy
chewy
cookies.
cookies.
Anyway, so this is my version.
All right.
In here I've got 115 grams of butter and 150 grams of caster sugar. We just beat them together. Not too much, but nice and light. Okay.
Butter and sugar is a good
Butter,
way to
sugar,
start.
and then condensed milk.
Oh, my gosh.
A little bit of condensed milk in there.
This is the diet, right?
Ah, but you...
Yeah, just have it with a salad. It'll be fine.
David, I'll tell you what it is.
I love it when people do that.
It's the amount you eat, it's not what you eat.
All right.
Okay.
There you go.
So I'd soon have a little bit of something nice than a lot of something that's not particularly good.
I'm with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
To that I'm going to add 200 grams of self-raising flour.
What?
Self-raising flour. You don't get it in America.
No.
It's a flour that has a raising agent in it.
Oh,
ready to
okay.
go, okay.
All right. I understand what you're talking
And then white chocolate. Just try
Well,
that.
how, what do they
Just
do in
try that
America?
white
Does nothing raise?
chocolate. There's use baking powder and cream of tartar.
They haven't worked on mixing it together yet.
That beautiful chocolate. And then this is the most important point here. This is salted peanuts.
Yeah.
Salted cuts of sweetness into there. And literally bring it together.
It makes you want to have more of them, too.
Oh, I tell you
Yeah?
what, absolutely right.
Yeah.
You've been to an English pub, obviously.
Well, once or twice in my life, yes.
That's what they do. Now, what you do, bring that together, and it will come up to a nice soft dough. Now, just bring that together. Well, you mustn't overwork the gluten, otherwise the biscuit won't stay soft. They go very hard.
What's the gluten?
Gluten is the
I don't cook, obviously.
well, okay, in the flour, there's a gluten which gives bread and cakes its structure.
Oh,
And
okay.
If you work it, it becomes more elastic.
All right.
Okay, now if you work it in cookies, what happens is they become very tough.
Mm-hmm.
So we just bring that together,
Right.
and in good fashion, we have one already done.
Excellent.
Put it in cling film and chill it. Now this will keep in your fridge for probably a month, quite easily, 6 weeks, it won't go off. And then when you come to cook them, you take off the cling film, you get a sharp knife,
If we can find one.
right here, and you just cut 10 slices, like that.
Oh, you can hear it crunching as it goes through.
There's a very famous ice cream company that does a dough that you...
Yeah.
we must have mentioned it.
Okay, we must have.
But I want you to taste that, David.
All right.
You two taste that.
This is the dough.
This is the dough, raw, and it's absolutely delicious.
Cookie dough.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, no, you could just eat this all day, couldn't you?
Couldn't you just? So, you cut that into 10 pieces, like that. 150 degrees in the oven, and cook them until...
150?
150 centigrade.
It's like that. It's
300 Fahrenheit.
It's about that hot where I live.
Where do you live?
Let's leave them outside.
I live in South Florida.
Okay. Now, once they've cooked, take them out of the oven and let them rest. You can't move them for about 10 minutes. And over here,
Yeah.
this is what they end up like.
Ooh.
Now, this is the point. Look at that. It's slightly soft on the inside.
Nice.
That's what we're after.
So
And
you
that's-
weren't sure at first, but we've got you now, haven't we?
No, I'm definitely in this.
Now,
I'm right here.
you have,
Can I have a taste?
You have a taste of that? Well, I make the icing. The icing's a bit different.
What?
Here I've got fondant icing. Now, this is icing sugar
We don't do
with
the
glucose.
icing too much.
No, you don't.
No.
You do frostings,
Right.
which is fairly similar.
Okay.
Okay? So here I've got fondant icing sugar, which is icing sugar with glucose in it, so it sets and gives a nice shine.
What's that? Alcohol?
This is whiskey. You drink whiskey?
I don't believe so. No. It's certainly not at this hour.
Well, you can look.
No, I don't.
Oh, come on.
Nope.
Whiskey.
We're more rock and roll than him.
I know.
Way.
When was the last time you threw a television set out of the window? We do it all the time.
We did it yesterday.
I heard that, actually.
Right. So here we've got icing sugar, whiskey, and double cream. Again, no fattening.
I'm going to leave this to you, too.
Okay.
All right?
Fair enough.
And then finally, when the cookies are cool, you then pour into there like that.
I'm doing a book signing at Lakeside today.
Are
and
you?
The last thing I want
You
to
should
do
take some with you.
is be drunk.
Right.
No, walk in the door.
No.
Now,
While that's the ones without.
While that's setting, let's go to a quick recap and I'll show you the end result.
Okay.
Okay, here's a recap. Cream together 115 grams of butter and 115 grams of caster sugar until soft and creamy. Mix in 6 tablespoons of condensed milk, 200 grams of self-raising flour, 90 grams of chopped white chocolate and 55 grams of chopped roasted peanuts. Form the dough into a squat sausage shape, roll in cling film and chill well. Remove the cling film and cut into 10 slices and place on lined baking trays. Cook at 150 degrees centigrade, gas 2 for about 10 to 12 minutes until slightly risen and light brown. Allow to cool before removing from the parchment. Mix together 140 grams of fondant icing sugar, 2 tablespoons of whiskey and 2 tablespoons of cream to make the icing. Carefully spread over the biscuits and leave to set.
Look at
That.
that.
Look at that.
Is it? One for you.
Thank you.
And one for you. Sorry, David.
That's all right. I'll be moving back.
No,
now.
you're very good.
Taste of that.
We
Go
also
on.
have to keep you sober because you've got the tour coming.
I do.
April the 10th, the start of the tour. It's the Rewind Tour
Yeah.
with David Essex.
David Essex, the Osmonds, and Shawadi Wadi, who actually opened for me in my last concert stadium tour in 1974 at Main Road, at White City Stadium. And anyway, it's going to be a fabulous thing. We're doing 10 shows in 11 days, which is going to be quite remarkable in itself. But I promised my son I wouldn't leave for more than 2 weeks. And that's why we're doing it. But I'm doing a special show on the 16th at Hammersmith with just Shawadi Wadi and I, which will be sort of trying to recapture that
Well,
vibe.
you've got
David,
such
thank
loyal fans that your fans will
They
know
do.
where you are anyway.
Yep.
But if you don't know, we'll put all the details on our website.
Great.
So everyone will know where you
Fantastic.
are. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you
indeed.
very much,
Thanks,
David.
by the way,
Thank you.
Well done,
Well done,
Phil.
Phil. They're
you're pretty
amazing.
American there. I like it.
Looking
Phil's
good.
back a bit later as well with some royal puddings.
Yeah.